Due to the abysmal of a result that is Berserk back in 2016, 3D animation seems to have garnered more attention than before, but mostly not the attention they had hoped for. Since then, the already poor reputation of CG anime had only plunged even deeper into the abyss, with Berserk 2016 as the crown laughingstock people actively poke fun of. And then, a glimmer of hope appeared a year later. Houseki no Kuni, or Land of the Lustrous, came to a surprise and had solidly proven that 3D anime can indeed be done not only well but beautifully. As someone who never keeps up with anime seasonally because why let cliffhangers haunt you when you have tons of great shows out there you can binge, I found out Land of the Lustrous through recommendations from several anime YouTubers. From what little I saw, I decided to give it a try because of how stunning it looks, and that was an important first step to me. Even though I have nothing against CG prior to this, there were elements of a full-fledged 3D shows that typically just turns me away. Mainly, the rigid facial expressions, low frame rates of the character models, and one of the most important aspects of anime character design, their hair. Even so, I never despised the use of 3D. After all, it is a tool the industry had and has to adapt at some point. A long journey of trials and errors they have to endure to ultimately get better at it. I firmly believe it is not the nature of 3D itself that makes a bad looking show. It is the matter of execution. And when my first impression detects none of the concern that disturbs me, I had it in my mind the production team behind knew what they were doing. It is no coincidence that Land of the Lustrous looks as good as it is. I wouldn't go as far as to say it looks perfect through and through, and there are still some scenes that threw me off, but the abundance of quality presented here is nothing to scoff at. With that in mind, I try to assess what are the elements that made the show so formidable, despite using a medium people stereotypically hate. Mention, one of the biggest no-no for me in a 3D show is the static looking hair slapped on the character models. Let's be real, anime hair, as absurd as they can be sometimes, is a vital part of character design. So for me, a 3D show has to at least nail the handling of their character's hair to a subpar level for it to be palpable. Unless they are going full-blown strand-by-strand hair physics, like the cutscenes from Square Enix's games, which at that point is an entire different CG approach, they are bound to compromise with lumps of graphics that are seemingly smeared by Gatsby hair wax entirely. When I first heard the show is related with gemstones, I immediately had my suspicion that this must be the sole element that drove the entire production to approach CG from the very beginning. And through a little research, my suspicion wasn't far away from the truth after all. Shapes and stones with geometrical, metallic look is where 3D can capitalize on. But they didn't just make some pretty stones lying around to showcase the capabilities of 3D. They have incorporated it into the design of the characters, namely the hair, and actually animated them with care. I am not exaggerating when I say the hair alone sells me the show. I thought, what a clever idea to fix what I consider an obstacle of CG by using a source material in which the hairs of their characters are actually gemstones. They look unnatural, yet in context they are logical, with details to boot too. Some of them duller with small pitches of light reflections and some of them translucent and shiny. Because they are stones, we write it off as natural. When every gems share the same body type and wear the exact same outfit, which by the way is perfectly convenient for CG to handle, viewers have to distinguish each gem solely by the shape and color of their hairs, the biggest focal point of their design. Based on that, their hair game draws enough attention to ensure it will affect the visual appeal of the entire show. This colorful candy-like hairstyle the gems bear will be the heavy lifter of the aesthetic of the show. Forget about boob physics, hair physics we strive next. So no matter what, they cannot afford to look bad, and when their hairs are actually gemstones rendered with care, it is an entirely different experience to behold. Perhaps the source material itself is a rare gem, even among many others that befits translating into the third dimension. It has what it takes to fit perfectly with what CG can comfortably handle, but that is not to degrade the efforts put behind the scene. Orange, the production team responsible, has fully taken the advantage of the material to breach these obstacles I have mentioned that I'm sure some of you have as well. You know they are up for a challenge when they took an extra step to turn the main character into an even more expressive blob than it originally intended. After reading the manga up to where the show ended, I personally think that Force was given a little special treatment in the anime, as in they had boosted their expressiveness a little further than the other gems, despite they all feel equally expressive in the source material, as if the production team was trying to make their job even harder just to break the mold of an impression CG animation was infamous for: stiffness facial expression. Suffice to say, they have done a great job on Force's character. I say it was a wise investment, and it pays off. After all, the main character is the central focus of this story, and they take up more screen time than anyone else. I am thoroughly impressed by how lively Force looks, and a huge part of the reason why I adore them as a character comes from these silly little moments they have added in with attention to details in their body movements to convey their innocence. Imagine if the show has a deadpan, too cool for words sort of character as the main. More screen time on an emotionless character means less work they need to insert, lesser chance for us to detect the flaw of 3D models in general. But wait, that did sort of happen. As Force develops their character in the later half of the show, the finesse animation we saw on their facial expressions switched gear into their combat abilities instead. A trade-off that I can't fully dig, to be honest, because in my eyes, the other gems have already filled the roles for the action spectrum. The show had plenty of chances to showcase awesome fight scenes using the advantage of a freeform camera, while the bubbly nature of Force animated through the CG process we can no longer experience. Thankfully, this void is sometimes filled by the rest of the gems in return. The atmosphere surrounding Force, in contrast, has become much lighter after they wake up from the hibernation, as Force was forced to grow due to the trauma they had faced with the absence of everyone. Though it is still a shame that the other gems are not as expressive as pre-trauma innocent Force. Perhaps this is the selfish me hoping to see more on how they utilize CG to showcase facial expressions. But let me be clear, I am not against Force's development at all. In fact, I am actually in favor of this decision. All the efforts they had put in to enhance Force's bubbliness early in the show have finally met the deserved payoff as they turn to become a steel-hearted gem, creating an even more impactful contrast that will be absent if not for the extra efforts. Instead of saying it just so happens to favor the situation, I very much believe this is no coincidence, but their clever intention all along. Although Land of the Lustrous prides itself on using CG as its main pillar, they never neglect the traditional techniques. In fact, the "don't forget the roots" ideology was withheld strongly by the team. The facial animations I just boasted were translated from 2D drawings, a technique tracing over hand-drawn results that were originated from Walt Disney's animators. Full 2D animations are also integrated when appropriate, and 2D effects animations are adequately scattered across in support of the visuals as well. I can't stress enough how good these dust trails look during the intense slips and slides performed by the gems. Sometimes effects are handled by more CG, but they only add on top of the already beautiful picture instead of weighing them down. All these are proofs of the attention to details they committed for quality's sake. And if not for the beautiful background art to serve as support, the show wouldn't look as stunning as it is. While I will still give CG Grassfield the credits they deserve, it came to a surprise that the background art can still be so pronounced given the settings of the story. With an open field and a cape with a beach, The nature of the world, which is supposedly post-apocalyptic, is still being captured with intriguing details and wonders. If you have watched the show, try to recall how many wide-angle shots they use to bask us within the beauty of the backgrounds and let it do the heavy lifting. They also take advantage of the day and night cycle to not just give a sense of time, but to enhance the atmosphere of certain important scenes. Clever use of weather colors evokes mood that are absent in the manga. Speaking of atmosphere, lighting plays an interesting part in this show too. Speculations tell me they are not using dynamic digital light sources in all scenarios, and the character models are just tagged with careful cel shading techniques due to the fact that the shades on their bodies are static. In fact, if anyone can tell me how they handle these specific lighting effects shown in this building, that will quench my peculiar curiosity very happily, because it genuinely took my breath away. But in the bigger picture, that is none of the concerns for the average audience trying to have a good time. These effects are heavily felt in front of our eyes. Though it might be an element taken granted by most viewers, I suggest you to pay more attention next time just how much background and colors can affect our viewing experience in anime. Take Berserk 2016 for example, where the show is filled with dark, featureless backgrounds. You wonder why every moment of that show is puke-inducing. Our attentions are forced on the poorly animated models because the backgrounds are not interesting at all, leaving no flaws undetected. Not to say the models in Houseki are bad till it needs distraction. In fact, every aspect of Houseki are just several levels up ahead of Berserk. The results definitely speak for themselves. Houseki leaves no corners uncovered, albeit the background, while the laughingstock on the other hand was just cutting every possible corners. When everything was given genuine care to look good, the show naturally looks good, isn't it? Last but not least is the confidence showcased by the studio. Orange is not shying away from taking the initiative to display what they are capable of doing with their expertise over 3D. Sequences where the gems perform coaster rides of stunts, accompanied by the finesse of the camera movements, are entirely their own creations. With the understandings and controls over the camera freedom CG provides, the adaptation is filled with trademark moments the studio was known for, injecting their identity to enhance upon the already stellar manga. And all of those scenes happen to become the most iconic moments known by the community. Again, efforts well paid off, and they had succeeded making a name for themselves based on the reactions. And with that, everything hits the mark. A well-produced result that is not hinged by the curse of 3D. From the expressiveness of characters during low time, and the unique high-octane movement showcase. There is no coincidence Land of the Lustrous looks as beautiful as it is presented. Orange becomes the name to be recognized by this feat alone. As Land of the Lustrous was their first time helming a full production, they have firmly paved way for themselves, a well-deserved achievement. Houseki no Kuni sets a bar so high it is not ignorable. It is a production worth studying for in the industry moving forward with 3D, and hopefully it will spark even more interest towards CG production, and clear up misconceptions to gain more acceptance from the people. I left the show hoping for more, not only because of the story by the end, but an urge wanting to see more boundaries pushed. It might be a stretch to wish for another season, given how long it took for the show to be made, but with its popularity, it might not be impossible after all. Though if a follow-up season is to be made, I wish they are allowed to have as much time as it takes to meet both the audiences and their own expectations. I do not wish this series to be tainted by rush effort at this point. Nevertheless, I hope there will be more success story like this coming in the future. One can only hope every CG shows moving forward could live up with this rare gem that caught us by surprise. This is one of many pre-made videos which I'm planning to release weekly in an attempt to kickstart my channel, Moon Anime. So if you are so inclined, subscribe to my channel if you want to hear more about my thoughts on anime. Follow me on Twitter at moonanime9 for updates and occasional little thoughts. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you from the moon. Jikai on Moon Anime.
Time to live forever, baby.